Let me ask you a question. Are you tired? I don't mean tired from a long day of work. I mean tired of your own story. Tired of the same excuses, the same patterns, the same results, year after agonizing year. Most people wait for their circumstances to change them. But the great lives are not changed by circumstance. They are changed by a single, powerful internal decision, fueled by one of 4 profound emotions. One of those emotions is disgust. And today you will learn why a moment of pure, honest disgust with your own acceptance of mediocrity might just be the most powerful, positive, and life-changing force you will ever experience. Good evening. Tonight, I want to talk to you about a single day. It is a day that exists as a potential within every human life. For some, it has already passed, and they remember it with the kind of crystalline clarity that time cannot erode. For others, it is still waiting in the future, a quiet promise, a dormant seed of possibility. It is a day that on the calendar looks like any other. But in the biography of the soul, it is the day that divides your entire story into 2 distinct and unequal chapters. The chapter titled Before and the one titled After. This is the day that turns your life around. Now, we have all been captivated by stories of such a day. We see it in films, we read it in books. It is the moment the struggling artist is discovered. It is the moment the entrepreneur has the breakthrough idea in the middle of the night. It is the moment the lonely soul bumps into their future partner in a chance encounter. We are taught to see these moments as strokes of luck, as bolts of lightning from a clear blue sky, as magical events that happen to a fortunate few. But I am here tonight to tell you that this is a profound misunderstanding. The true turning point of a human life is almost never an external event. It is not a day when your circumstances magically improve. It is not a day when your problems miraculously vanish, or when a benevolent fate decides to smile upon you. Those are the fantasies of a child, the hopes of a lottery player, the philosophy of the passive bystander in their own life. The day I am speaking of is an internal revolution. It is a quiet, or sometimes thunderous, declaration that takes place within the private chambers of your own heart and mind. It is the day you finally reach a threshold of the spirit, a point of no return, where you stand up, look at the life you have been living, and say to yourself, with a conviction that silences all other voices, that's it, no more. No more of this version of me. No more of these same excuses. No more of this quiet desperation. No more of this story. The author is taking back the pen, and a new chapter begins today. From that point of decision, from that moment of profound and absolute clarity, everything begins to shift. Not because the world has changed, but because the person at the center of that world has. The external world has no choice but to eventually reshape itself around the new internal reality you have forged. The day your life turns around is not a day you wait for, it is a day you declare. It is your internal declaration of independence. But before we can understand how to make such a declaration, we must first be honest about the state that precedes it. We must perform an anatomy of stuckness. Why does this day for so many never arrive? What are the subtle but powerful forces that keep a person trapped in the chapter of before? The first force is the comfort of the familiar. We often believe we desire change, but what the human nervous system truly craves is certainty. And so, a known misery often feels safer than an unknown solution. The job you dislike is familiar. The relationship that has gone stale is familiar. The pattern of your debts is familiar. This is the velvet rut, a state of being that is not painful enough to force a change, but not fulfilling enough to bring any real joy. It is the slow, comfortable anesthesia of a life lived at half-mast. The second force is the weight of the past. We become prisoners of our own biography. We construct an identity based on our past mistakes and our past limitations, and we tell ourselves this story over and over again until we believe it is the only story that can be written. I'm just not a disciplined person. I've never been good with money. I'm too old to start now. These are not statements of fact. They are the bars of a cage we have built for ourselves. And we mistake this cage for the entirety of the world. And the third force is the paralysis of someday. This is the belief that a better, more convenient time to make a change will arrive in the future. I'll start my business when the economy improves. I'll get healthy after the holidays. I'll fix my relationship when I'm less stressed. But someday is a mythical land where dreams go to die. It is the ultimate procrastination, the excuse that allows us to remain stuck today, comforted by the false promise of a magical tomorrow. The comfort of the familiar, the weight of the past, and the paralysis of someday. These three forces create a powerful inertia that keeps a life moving in the same direction, year after agonizing year. So, what is it that can shatter this inertia? What is the force powerful enough to break the chains of the past and overcome the fear of the unknown? It is not a new piece of information. It is not a clever new strategy. The day your life turns around does not begin with action. Not yet. It begins with something far deeper, something more primal. It begins with the force that has powered every great achievement and every significant change in the history of humanity. It begins with emotion. This is the great secret. This is the misunderstood superpower. Emotions are stronger than logic. They are stronger than reason. They are, in many cases, even stronger than knowledge. They are the powerful currents that run beneath the placid surface of our lives. Think of your life as a magnificent ship. Your intellect, your knowledge, your plans, these are the rudder. They are incredibly important. They give you the ability to steer, to navigate, to aim for a specific destination. But a ship with a perfect rudder and no engine is just a piece of driftwood at the mercy of the currents. Emotion is the engine. Emotion is the raw combustible power that creates propulsion. It is the only thing that can move the great ship of your life out of the stagnant harbor of your past and into the open waters of your future. The rudder can only steer a ship that is already moving. Emotion is what creates the movement. You can know with perfect logical clarity that you should change your life. You can read the books, make the charts, understand the consequences. This is cold knowledge. And cold knowledge rarely leads to massive action. But then one day, something happens. A health scare fills you with the hot emotion of fear. A moment of deep shame fills you with the hot emotion of disgust. A glimpse of a beautiful future fills you with the hot emotion of desire. And in that moment, all the cold knowledge you have accumulated over the years is suddenly ignited. It catches fire. And that combination, hot emotion plus cold knowledge, is what creates unstoppable momentum. The day your life turns around is the day one of these powerful, productive emotions becomes the dominant force in your life. It is the day you stop merely steering a drifting ship and you finally decide to turn on the engine. So our journey together tonight is an exploration of that engine room. We are not here to give you another map. You likely already have plenty of maps. We are here to show you how to find the fuel. We are here to show you how to ignite the engine. We have understood what the day of awakening is. It is an internal declaration. We have understood that its power comes not from logic, but from emotion. Now, we must become masters of that power. We must learn to identify, to understand, and to harness the specific, productive emotions that can serve as the fuel for our own personal revolution. In our time together, we will explore the 4 great emotions that can serve as the catalyst for the day that turns your life around. The kind of change that doesn't fade, the kind of change that sticks. So I ask you to open your mind, and more importantly, to open your heart, for the answers you have been looking for are not in another book. They are waiting dormant within you. Are you ready to discover the 4 keys that unlock the door to your own turning point? Are you ready to finally create the day that turns your life around? Let us begin. We have established a profound and liberating truth. The day that turns your life around is not an accident of fate that you must wait for, but an act of will that you must declare. It is the moment you decide that a new chapter must be written and that you are the one who will write it. This brings us to the most critical question of all. If this power to change resides within us, why do so many of us remain stuck? Why do we find ourselves year after year knowing what we ought to do, yet failing to do it? This is the great human paradox, the gap that exists between our knowledge and our action. We live in an age of unprecedented information. The collected wisdom of the ages is available to us on a small device we carry in our pockets. We have read the books. We have listened to the experts. We know the 5 steps to better health, the 7 principles of financial success, the 10 keys to a happier relationship. We have the map. We have the instructions. We have more knowledge than any generation in the history of the world. And yet, for so many, that knowledge lies dormant. It sits in the mind like a collection of beautiful but unused tools in a dusty workshop. The person who knows they should save money continues to spend. The person who knows they need to have a difficult conversation continues to choose silence. The aspiring entrepreneur with a brilliant business plan on their hard drive never takes the first step. Why? If knowledge is power, why are so many of us, armed with so much knowledge, living lives that feel so powerless? The answer lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of how we as human beings are designed. We have been taught to worship at the altar of logic, of reason, of pure, cold intellect, but we have neglected the far more ancient, far more powerful force that truly governs our lives. Tonight, we are going to pull back the curtain on this force. We are going to explore the true engine of all human change. We are going to talk about emotion, the misunderstood superpower. To understand this, I want you to imagine your soul as being governed by two distinct captains. The first captain is reason. This is your intellect, your logic. Reason is brilliant. It can analyze, it can strategize, it can learn, it can create the most exquisite and detailed maps for the future. It can weigh the pros and cons, calculate the risks, and chart the most efficient course to any destination. In our analogy of the great ship of your life, reason is the captain at the helm, holding the rudder. It knows precisely how to steer. But there is a second captain. This captain does not live in the light of the conscious mind, but in the deep, powerful engine room of the soul. This captain is emotion. Emotion is ancient, primal, and incredibly strong. It does not speak the language of spreadsheets and logic. It speaks the language of feeling, of intuition, of survival, of love, of fear, of joy. Emotion is the captain of the engine room. It controls the raw power, the propulsion, the very force that makes the ship move. And here is the secret. If the captain at the rudder and the captain of the engine room are in perfect alignment, the ship of your life can travel anywhere with astonishing speed and precision. But if there is a conflict, if reason wants to steer north but emotion wants to power south, the captain of the engine room will win every single time. An engine at full throttle will overpower a rudder every day of the week. This is why you can know you should go to the gym, but if the feeling of comfort on the couch is more powerful, the engine of emotion wins. This is why you can know you should forgive someone, but if the hot engine of resentment is still burning, the rudder of logic has no chance. We have spent our lives trying to change by giving new instructions to the captain at the rudder. We read another book, we learn a new technique, we try to think our way into a new life, but we have neglected the real source of power. The day that turns your life around is the day you stop just talking to the rudder and you go down into the engine room. We live in a world suffering from a great fallacy, the fallacy that more information leads to transformation. We are drowning in information, yet we are starving for wisdom. We collect data, but we fail to have insights. Let me be clear. Information, knowledge, logic, these are essential. They are the map. They are the rudder. Without them, emotion is just chaos, a powerful engine with no steering, a ship powering in circles, destined to crash upon the rocks. But the great error of our time is believing the map is enough. You must understand this distinction. Information does not lead to transformation. Insight, when ignited by a powerful emotion, leads to transformation. You can have a library full of information about the dangers of a poor diet, but a single moment of profound emotional insight, perhaps a doctor's grim warning, the fear in a loved one's eyes, that single insight can provide the emotional fuel for a lifetime of change. The information was always there. The emotion is what made it matter. So, if emotion is the engine, if it is the source of all true power for change, then the intelligent person must stop treating their emotions as an inconvenience. They must stop suppressing them or ignoring them. They must instead become a master of the engine room. Emotion is like a great river. It is a neutral force of nature. Left unchanneled, that river can be a destructive flood, overflowing its banks, destroying the landscape of your life. with rage, with fear, with apathy. So many lives are wrecked by the force of unchanneled emotion. But a wise person does not try to stop the river. That is a fool's errand. A wise person, an architect, learns to build channels. They learn to build dams and turbines. They understand that the very same force that can destroy, when properly channeled, can become a source of immense and productive power. It can irrigate entire fields. It can power great cities. The art of living a magnificent life is the art of becoming an emotional alchemist. It is the art of learning how to channel the powerful, raw, and often messy river of your emotions into productive currents of action. And our philosophy provides us with 4 great channels, 4 magnificent turbines through which we can direct this power. These are the 4 productive, life-altering emotional states that we will explore in our time together. They are the catalysts that ignite the cold knowledge in your mind and turn it into the fire of transformation. The first channel is disgust. This is the powerful emotion that severs our connection to a past we will no longer tolerate. It is the power of profound rejection. It is the force that says no more. The second channel is decision. We often think of this as a purely logical act, but a true decision is an emotion. It is the feeling of certainty, of commitment, of closing all other doors. It is the power of clear and focused direction. The third channel is desire. This is the magnetic emotion that pulls us toward a future we are compelled to create. It is the power of irresistible attraction. It is the vision of a future that is more compelling than the comfort of the present. And the fourth channel is resolve. This is the deep, quiet, and unbreakable emotion of endurance. It is the power that sustains us when the initial spark of the other emotions begins to fade. It is the promise we make to ourselves that we will see this through for as long as it takes. Disgust, decision, desire, and resolve. These are the 4 great engines of change. So, we must abandon the futile effort of trying to think our way into a new life. The journey does not begin with a new thought. It begins with a new feeling. It begins with the courage to step into the engine room of your own soul and to finally engage with the magnificent, terrifying, and awe-inspiring power that resides there. You are not a passive bystander to your own emotions. You are not a victim of your feelings. You are, or you have the potential to become, an alchemist. An alchemist is someone who takes common raw materials, in this case, the powerful and often volatile emotions of the human heart, and learns to transform them into something precious, something golden. In our case, a transformed life. We have understood the engine. We now know what the fuel is. In our next section, we will strike the first match. We will explore the surprising and life-altering power of the first great spark, the emotional force that has initiated more new beginnings than any other. We will explore the profound and productive power of righteous disgust. We have established a foundational truth. The great ship of your life is not moved by the gentle breezes of logic, but by the powerful, often turbulent winds of emotion. Your intellect is the rudder, essential for steering, but emotion is the engine, the sole source of propulsion. To create the day that turns your life around, you must learn to go down into the engine room and engage with this raw, magnificent power. We identified 4 great emotional forces that, when channeled correctly, can serve as the fuel for radical and lasting change. Disgust, decision, desire, and resolve. Tonight, we will strike the first match. We will explore the first and perhaps most surprising of these forces. It is an emotion we are often taught to suppress, to view as negative and unproductive. But I am here to tell you that, when understood correctly, this emotion can be the unlikely savior that rescues you from a life of quiet mediocrity. It can be the catalyst for the cleanest and most decisive break you will ever make with your past. We are going to talk about the profound and productive power of righteous disgust. Now, I can sense the hesitation. The word itself is jarring. Disgust. It brings to mind images of negativity, of bitterness, of anger. And let me be perfectly clear from the outset. The disgust I am speaking of has nothing to do with the toxic outward-facing anger that defines the philosophy of the victim. I am not talking about disgust with the world, with the government, with the economy, or with other people. That is the emotion of blame. That is the drifter's comfortable excuse, a poison that keeps him powerless and chained to his circumstances. The disgust I am speaking of is a rare, private, and profoundly personal event. It is an inward-facing emotion. It is the moment you get utterly, completely, and finally fed up, not with the world, but with yourself. It is the moment you are disgusted with your own excuses, disgusted with the same tired old story you have been telling yourself for years, disgusted with your own acceptance of a life that is so far beneath your true potential. It is a form of righteous anger, directed not at your circumstances, but at your own complacency. It is the immune system of your character, dormant for years, suddenly recognizing a disease, the disease of mediocrity, of procrastination, of fear, and rising up with all its might to expel it from your life. It is the voice of your future self screaming back through time, saying, I have been waiting for you to get serious. The time is now. This powerful emotion rarely announces its arrival. It is often triggered by a small, seemingly insignificant moment, a moment of embarrassment, a moment of shame, a moment of painful clarity that bypasses all your intellectual defenses and pierces you right in the soul. It is the straw that finally breaks the camel's back, not because of its own weight, but because it lands at the precise moment the camel decides it will carry no more. I remember my own moment with a clarity that feels like it was yesterday. It is a story I have shared before, but it is the truest illustration I know of this powerful principle. I was young, full of ambition, but my results were pitiful. I was broke, not just short on cash, but profoundly, deeply broke. My pockets were empty, but worse, my philosophy was empty. I had all the excuses. It was the government's fault, the economy's fault, my boss's fault. I had a library of reasons for my failure, and I was the star librarian. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a little Girl Scout, a bright, smiling, innocent child with a sash full of badges, a picture of youthful enterprise. She gave me her well-rehearsed speech and asked if I would like to buy a box of cookies. And in that moment, two things happened. First, I wanted to. I truly did. I wanted to support this young person's efforts. I wanted to perform this simple, normal act of commerce and community. The second thing was the cold, hard reality. I did not have $2 to my name. The shame was instant and overwhelming. Here was this child who had more business acumen and was creating more value in that moment than I was, and I, a grown man full of dreams, could not afford her product. And so, in that moment of shame, I did what so many of us do when confronted with an uncomfortable truth. I lied. A weak, pathetic lie. I smiled and said, oh, thank you, but I've already bought plenty of cookies this year. She gave me that innocent, trusting smile, said, okay, thank you, sir, and turned and walked down the path. I closed the door, and the click of the latch echoed in the silence of my empty apartment. It was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I leaned my back against the door, and a wave of emotion so hot and so powerful washed over me that it felt like a physical force. It was disgust. Pure, undiluted disgust with myself. And a question burned in my mind, a question that became the turning point of my entire life. What kind of a man have I become that I have to lie to a child because I don't have $2? It wasn't about the cookies. It wasn't even about the $2. It was about the lie. It was about the lack of integrity. It was about the gap between the man I wanted to be and the man who was standing behind that door hiding from a Girl Scout. And in that moment, I made a vow. I said it out loud to the empty room, my voice shaking with a new and unfamiliar power. I said, I am never, ever going to feel this way again. That was it. That was my never again day. My I've had it day. That was the moment my old life became unacceptable to me. That was the day that righteous disgust provided the spark that ignited a revolution in my life. Now, it is crucial that we distinguish this productive force from its poisonous cousin, blame. The drifter feels the same pain, the same shame. But his response is to look out the window and curse the Girl Scout for making him feel bad, to curse the company for not paying him enough, to curse the world for being unfair. Blame looks outward. It says, it's their fault. It focuses on the external world. And because you cannot change the external world directly, blame leads to a feeling of powerlessness, of bitterness, of being a victim. It is a cage. Righteous disgust looks inward. It looks in the mirror. It says, it is my fault that I have tolerated this. It is my responsibility that I have accepted this. My standards have been too low. My efforts have been too weak. It focuses on the one thing you have absolute control over, your own philosophy, your own actions, your own standards. And because you can change those things, disgust leads to a feeling of immense, explosive power. It is the key that unlocks the cage. So, how do you cultivate this spark? You cannot wait for a Girl Scout to appear at your door. You must have the courage to create your own moment of clarity. You do this through the practice of honest self-assessment. You must be willing to conduct your own disgust audit. You must sit down in a quiet room with a pen and a piece of paper and list the things in your life that you are currently tolerating. The small debts you are ignoring, the poor health habits you keep excusing, the unfulfilling job you complain about but never prepare to leave, the relationships where you are not showing up as your best self. You must write them down. And you must look at that list until the dull ache of dissatisfaction intensifies into the sharp, motivating pain of disgust. You must amplify the feeling not by looking outward at who is to blame, but by looking inward at why you have allowed it. Then, you must use the power of contrast. If you are disgusted with your financial situation, do not just stare at your own empty bank account. Go to the library and read the biographies of people who started with nothing and built fortunes. Study their habits, their discipline, their philosophy. The stark contrast between their story and your current story will fan the flames of your disgust and turn it into the fuel of ambition. This is not a comfortable process. It is not meant to be. Righteous disgust is a painful emotion. Its purpose is not to make you feel good about yourself as you are. Its purpose is to make you so profoundly uncomfortable with who you are that you are finally, irrevocably compelled to move. It is the great severance. It is the emotional force that takes a sword and in one clean stroke cuts the ropes that have tied you to the anchor of your past self. It is a necessary act of violence against your own mediocrity. It is the powerful, definitive end of the chapter called Before. Disgust is the explosive charge that shatters the old reality. It is the power that gets you to the crossroads. But disgust alone, for all its power, is not enough. It can show you what you are running from, but it cannot show you where you are running to. Once you have broken free from the past, you must have the wisdom to choose a new direction for the future. And that requires the second great emotional force, the one that must immediately follow the spark of disgust. It requires the clear, calm, and world-altering power of decision. We have just explored the first and most powerful spark of change, the force of righteous disgust. That never again moment, the point where the old life becomes utterly unacceptable. This is the beginning of the revolution. And if you are feeling that spark right now, even just a flicker, if you are ready to draw your own line in the sand and begin the journey of transformation, then I invite you to make a small but significant first action. By subscribing to this channel, you are doing more than just getting videos. You are joining a community of individuals who have also declared their never again day. You are making a commitment to feeding your mind with the philosophy of change. Click that subscribe button as a declaration that your new chapter begins now. Now, that spark of disgust is the power that gets you to the crossroads. But what do you do once you are there? That brings us to the next great emotional force. We have just returned from a place of fire. We have explored the profound and productive power of righteous disgust, that unlikely savior, that emotional force that shatters our complacency and severs the chains that tie us to a life that is beneath our potential. Disgust provides the raw, explosive power to break free. It is the force that says, I will no longer tolerate this. It gets you out of the prison of your past habits and delivers you, blinking in the new light of possibility, to a new and sacred place. This place is the crossroads. Here the noise of your old life has faded, the chains have fallen away, and you are presented with the most terrifying and magnificent gift of all, a choice. In front of you lie multiple paths, each leading to a different future, a different version of you. This is the moment after the revolution, the moment when a new government must be formed. This is the moment when raw, undirected energy must be channeled by intelligent design. This brings us to the second great emotional force that turns a life around. It is the bridge between the rejection of the past and the creation of the future. We must now talk about the anatomy of a true decision. We must explore the point of no return. After the heat of emotion, there must come a moment of cool, clear, and committed choice. This is the fork in the road. And we must be honest, this is where many potential revolutions go to die. Many people experience a powerful moment of disgust. They are fired up, they are motivated, they are ready for a new life. But they arrive at the crossroads and they hesitate. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and months turn into years of hesitation. They end up camping at the crossroads. They build a comfortable little tent in the land of maybe, or I'll think about it, or someday. And the fire of their disgust, left unattended, slowly flickers and dies out, leaving them in the cold once more, trapped not by chains, but by their own indecision. Why? Why do so many of us become paralyzed at this most critical of junctures? We must first dissect the anatomy of indecision if we are to understand the power of a true decision. The first great enemy is the tyranny of the perfect plan. We tell ourselves a sophisticated lie. We say, I cannot move forward until I have all the answers. I need to do more research. I need a guaranteed, step-by-step, foolproof plan before I take the first step. This sounds like prudence. It sounds like wisdom. But in most cases, it is simply a highbrow form of fear. It is the traveler who is waiting for every single traffic light from their home to their destination, hundreds of miles away, to turn green before they will pull out of the driveway. It will never happen. You do not need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. The pursuit of the perfect plan is a sophisticated trap that guarantees you will never begin. The second great enemy is the fear of loss. A decision by its very nature is an act of sacrifice. The root of the word decide comes from the Latin meaning to cut off. When you choose one path, you must by definition cut off all others. When you say yes to one future, you must say no to all the other potential futures. And this is terrifying. We are haunted by the ghosts of the lives we could have lived. The drifter, the person who remains stuck, tries to keep all his options open. He wants to keep all the ghost ships of his potential futures safely in the harbor. The career as an artist, the life of a traveler, the path of the entrepreneur. By refusing to choose one, he keeps them all as possibilities. But in doing so, his own ship, the ship of his real life, never leaves the dock. He sacrifices the reality of one great adventure for the fantasy of 1,000. The architect understands that a life is defined not by the paths you could have taken, but by the one you chose to walk with conviction. And this leads us to the third and most insidious enemy, the illusion of no decision. The person camped at the crossroads often believes they are in a state of neutral waiting. They believe they are simply pausing, keeping their options open, making no choice at all. But this is the greatest delusion. Not deciding is a decision. It is a passive, unconscious, and cowardly decision to allow your old habits, your past momentum, your current circumstances, and the opinions of other people to decide for you. It is the abdication of your role as the captain of your soul. It is a decision to stay the same. And in a world that is constantly moving forward, to stay the same is to fall behind. The decision to not decide is often the most dangerous and costly decision of all. So, what is the antidote? What is the nature of a true, life-altering decision? A true decision is not a preference. It is not a wish. It is not a New Year's resolution. I have a simple litmus test for a real decision. A true decision is measured by the immediate presence of a new action. If you say, I have decided to get my finances in order, but the next day you have not created a budget or tracked your spending, you have not decided. You are merely interested. If you say, I have decided to get healthy, but the next day you eat the same food and skip the walk, you have not decided. you have only expressed a vague hope. A true decision is the moment you draw a line in the sand and your behavior on the other side of that line is fundamentally different. The action might be small, making one phone call, writing one paragraph, throwing out the junk food from your pantry, but the action must be there. It is the tangible proof that a revolution has occurred within. This is the philosophy of burning the boats. The story is told of the great commander who, upon landing his army on enemy shores, gave a shocking order: "Burn our ships." As his men watched their only means of retreat go up in flames, a terrifying and powerful clarity set in. There was now no back door, there was no plan B, there was no path of retreat. There was only one direction: forward, into victory or into oblivion. From that moment on, every soldier fought with a level of commitment and focus that was previously unimaginable. A true decision is the act of burning the boats that could take you back to your old life, your old habits, your old self. It is a conscious act of closing the door to your past, so that the only path available is the path forward. Now, what does this feel like? Does it feel safe? Does it feel comfortable? No. A true decision does not eliminate the fear, it harnesses it. A young man once shared a brilliant insight with me. He said, "I used to be scared of the butterflies in my stomach. That feeling of anxiety and fear would paralyze me. Now," he said, "I just decide to make them fly in formation." That is the perfect description of a true decision. The butterflies of fear and uncertainty are still there. That is the adrenaline of a life fully lived. But a decision gives them a command. It gives them a direction. It takes that chaotic, nervous energy and points it like a laser toward a single chosen objective. It is the difference between the debilitating fear of paralysis and the electric focused fear of a skydiver standing at the open door of a plane about to jump. One is the fear of stagnation. The other is the fear that precedes flight. And what must you do to make such a decision? You must let go of the need for the perfect plan. All you need is a direction and the first step. The journey of 1,000 miles begins not with the map, not with the weather report, not with the perfect pair of shoes, but with a single, humble, courageous step. The power is not in the 1,000th step, it is in the courage of the first. The universe does not reward contemplation, it rewards motion. Once you take the first step, the second step will be revealed, not before. So I ask you now to look at your own life. Where are you camping at the crossroads? What decision have you been delaying, cloaking your fear in the dignified robes of prudence and more research? What ghost ships are you refusing to let sail away, keeping your own life tethered to the dock of indecision? You have felt the fire of disgust. You have broken free from the cage of your past. You now stand at the point of no return. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need everyone's permission. You do not need to know the destination with absolute certainty. You only need to know the next right step. Choose a direction, decide, and move. Disgust provided the raw, explosive power to break free from the past, but decision provides the intelligent, focused direction to begin building the future. It is the act of saying, the old me is gone. This is who I am now, and this is the way I am walking. But a long and difficult journey requires more than just a direction. It requires sustainable fuel. It requires a powerful magnetic force to pull you forward, especially when the path gets steep and your initial commitment is tested. And that brings us to the third great emotional force, the one that gives your decision its lifeblood. We must now explore the incredible pulling power of a white-hot desire. We have journeyed together to a critical place. The explosive power of righteous disgust has shattered the chains of your past. It has delivered you to the great crossroads of your life. There, you have performed the most courageous act of a sovereign human being. You have made a decision. You have cut off all other possibilities, burned the boats of retreat, and chosen a new direction. You have pointed the great ship of your life toward a new and distant star. The engine has been sparked. The rudder has been set. But now, the journey truly begins. And a long journey requires more than just a starting push and an initial direction. A rocket cannot reach a distant planet on its launch fuel alone. It needs a powerful, sustained, and relentless force to pull it through the vast, cold, and often difficult emptiness of space. Disgust is the powerful force that pushes you away from the past you will no longer tolerate, but you cannot run from something forever. Eventually, your motivation must come from something you are running to. This brings us to the third great emotional force, the one that serves as the magnificent pulling power for the entire journey ahead. We must now talk about the fuel. We must talk about the fire. We must explore the art of cultivating a white-hot desire. If decision is the compass that points you north, desire is the magnetic pull of the North Star itself. It is the force that makes the journey not just a duty, but a delight. It is the energy that pulls you forward through obstacles, over setbacks, and across the long plateaus of effort. But we must first understand what a true, life-altering desire is, for it is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the world of personal achievement. We must learn to distinguish a true desire from its weak and impotent cousin, the wish. A wish is passive. A wish is a preference. A wish is a spectator's emotion. I wish I were in better shape. I wish I had more money. I wish my life were different. A wish has no energy. It has no power. It is a daydream that costs nothing and produces nothing. The world is full of well-meaning people whose lives are a graveyard of dead wishes. A true desire is something else entirely. It is not a preference. It is a compulsion. It is not a vague hope. It is a vivid, specific, and all-consuming vision. It is not a cool thought. It is a hot, burning emotional state. It is the feeling that there is a future version of yourself, a future set of circumstances that you must, by any means necessary, bring into reality. There is an old story of a young man who sought out a great philosopher and asked him, "Master, what is the secret to success?" The philosopher listened patiently and then said, "Follow me." He led the young man to a nearby river. Without a word, he grabbed the young man by the back of the head and plunged his face under the water. The young man was shocked, but he held his breath. After 30 seconds, his lungs began to burn. After 45, his mind was screaming for air. He began to thrash, to struggle, but the philosopher held him firm. Just as he was about to lose consciousness, the philosopher pulled his head out of the water. The young man gasped, sputtering, taking in deep, desperate gulps of air. Once he had recovered, the philosopher looked at him calmly and asked, "When you were under the water, what did you want?" The young man, still shaken, replied without hesitation, "I wanted air." The philosopher nodded. "And what else were you thinking about? Were you thinking about money, about fame, about impressing your friends?" "No," the young man said, "I wanted nothing but air." The philosopher smiled. "When you want success as badly as you just wanted air, then you will have it. That is the secret. That is the difference between a wish and a desire. A wish is one of 50 things you might want. A true desire is the only thing you can think about. It is a necessity. It is air. When your vision for the future becomes as necessary to you as your next breath, you will have it. So, the great question becomes, where does this kind of desire come from? We are told that you either have it or you don't. This is a lie. Desire is not something you are born with. It is something you cultivate. It is not a gift, it is a creation. It is a fire, and a fire requires 3 things to burn: a spark, kindling, and oxygen. Let us first talk about the spark. The spark is a moment of inspiration. It is a glimpse of a better way of living. But for so many of us, we live our lives in an insulated, fireproof room. We build walls around ourselves, and we call these walls being realistic. We tell ourselves we are being practical, that we don't want to get our hopes up. But this wall that you build to protect yourself from the pain of disappointment is the very same wall that blocks out the sparks of inspiration. To find the spark, you must have the courage to tear down the wall. You must be willing to be a student of life again. You must become a collector of sparks. You must be open. You must be curious. You must let life reach you. Once you have opened yourself up to the spark, you must feed it with kindling. The spark of inspiration is fleeting. It will die out if it has no fuel. The kindling is the act of deliberate exposure. You must consciously and consistently immerse yourself in the world you wish to inhabit. You must read the books. Go to the library and check out the biographies of the men and women you most admire. Let their stories, their struggles, their triumphs become the fuel for your own. When you read their words, you are having a conversation with them across time. You are learning that the life you desire is possible because another human being has already lived it. You must visit the places. If you desire wealth, visit the neighborhoods where wealthy people live. Not with envy, but with a student's curiosity. Observe the architecture, the well-tended gardens, the quality of the things you see. Let your mind absorb the evidence of what is possible. If you desire knowledge, spend your time in libraries and museums. If you desire health, spend your time where healthy people congregate. Expose your mind to the evidence of your desired future. And most importantly, you must engage with the people. Seek out conversations with those who are already living the life you are working to create. Their energy, their mindset, their very presence is contagious. One conversation with a person who is living your dream is more valuable than 100 books about it. Their success will make your own feel more real, more tangible, more achievable. This is the kind of ling. It is the active process of feeding your spark with a steady diet of proof. And finally, once the fire has caught, you must give it oxygen. The oxygen is your own personal vision. It is the act of taking all the external sparks, all the external kindling, and internalizing it. You must breathe your own life into it. This is where you engage the disciplined power of your imagination. You must create a picture of your future that is so clear, so vivid, and so emotionally compelling that it becomes a magnetic force pulling you forward. What does your new life look like? Who are you with? What are you doing? How do you feel? You must see it, feel it, and live in it in your mind long before it becomes your reality. This vision, this clear picture, is the oxygen that turns a small flame into a roaring bonfire. And this brings us to the ultimate test of a true desire. A desire, when it is burning hot enough, becomes an excuse incinerator. Think of all the excuses that are currently holding you back. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I'm too old, or I'm too young. I'm not smart enough. I don't know the right people. End quote. I want you to imagine that each one of these excuses is a small, flimsy piece of paper that you are holding in your hand. Now, I want you to imagine that your desire is a great furnace. When your desire is weak, a mere flicker, those paper excuses seem like insurmountable walls. But when you have cultivated your desire, when you have fed it with kindling and fanned it with your vision, it becomes a roaring furnace. And what happens when you bring a flimsy piece of paper close to a raging furnace? It is instantly and utterly incinerated. It vanishes in a flash of heat and light. This is the litmus test. If your excuses are still intact, if they still seem real and powerful to you, it is not a sign that your excuses are valid. It is simply a diagnosis that your fire is not yet hot enough. The solution is not to argue with the paper excuses. The solution is to go back and add more fuel to the fire. When your why becomes powerful enough, the how becomes insignificant. When your desire to achieve the vision is stronger than your attachment to your excuses, you will become unstoppable. So we see the progression. Righteous disgust was the powerful push that launched you away from the shore of your old life. The clean break of decision was the act of pointing your ship toward a new star. And now, a white-hot desire is the magnificent magnetic pull of that star itself, drawing you across the water. A decision made with logic is a choice. A decision fueled by a burning desire becomes a devotion. It is the force that makes the journey not a grind, but a glorious pursuit. But even the most passionate traveler, even the ship with the strongest wind in its sails, will face days of calm. It will face storms. It will face moments when the thrill of the departure has faded and the destination still seems a lifetime away. What is the force that holds the ship to its course in these moments? What is the anchor that keeps you steady when the winds of emotion die down or when the storms of life begin to rage? That requires the final, unbreakable emotional force. It requires the quiet, steady, and non-negotiable power of resolve. We have journeyed far into the engine room of the human soul. We have witnessed the explosive, revolutionary power of righteous disgust, the force that shatters our past. We have stood at the sacred crossroads and understood the clean, clear, and world-altering power of a true decision, the force that sets our new direction. We have just explored the magnificent, magnetic power of a white-hot desire, the force that pulls us toward our future with passion and excitement. We have the push, we have the direction, we have the pull, but now we must address the most difficult and most important question of all. What happens when the journey gets long? What happens when the initial fiery passion of your new decision begins to cool? What happens when you face the inevitable days of boredom, of frustration, of fatigue, of failure? What is the force that holds you to your path when the winds of desire die down and you find yourself in the vast, silent doldrums of the long, hard middle? This is the moment where most journeys of transformation fail. It is the moment where good intentions go to die. It is the moment where motivation is revealed to be a fair-weather friend. To complete the journey, you need one final internal power. It is not as loud as disgust. It is not as sharp as a decision. It is not as hot as desire. It is a quiet, deep, and immovable force. It is the bedrock upon which all lasting achievement is built. We must now talk about the unbreakable foundation. We must now talk about the nature of true resolve. Let us first distinguish resolve from its weaker, more popular cousin, motivation. Motivation is a feeling. It is an emotion. It is wonderful when it shows up. It makes the work feel effortless. It makes the journey feel exciting. But motivation is unreliable. It is a guest that arrives unannounced and leaves without warning. If you only work on your dream when you feel motivated, you will spend most of your life waiting. Resolve is not a feeling. Resolve is a policy. It is a law that you have enacted for your own life. It is a promise that you have made to your future self. On the days you are motivated, you work. On the days you are not motivated, you work. Why? Not because you feel like it, but because it is your policy. You do not consult your feelings, you consult your promise. Resolve is the character you exhibit when the emotion of the moment has faded. Resolve is captured in two of the most powerful words in the English language, I will. When you do minds, notice the profound difference between this and other phrases. I'll try is a weak statement. It presupposes the possibility of failure. It gives you an escape clause. I hope is even weaker. It outsources the power to some external force of luck or fate. I wish is the language of a child, but I will, that is the language of a creator. It is a declaration of future certainty, spoken with the full force of your present being. It is the act of bending the future to your will, not through arrogance, but through unwavering commitment. I once asked a group of people, who can define for me the word resolve? And a young girl stood up and said something so simple, so profound that I have never forgotten it. She said, resolve means you promise yourself you will never give up. That is it. That is the very heart of the matter. It is a promise. And the most important promises you will ever make are not the ones you make to your boss, to your clients, or even to your loved ones. The most important promises are the ones you make to yourself. To break a promise to another is a failure of integrity, but to repeatedly break a promise to yourself is a form of slow spiritual suicide. It erodes your self-respect. It teaches your subconscious mind that your own word is worthless. And a person who cannot trust their own word has no foundation upon which to build anything of value. Resolve is the act of becoming the kind of person you can trust. It is the act of making your own word to yourself sacred and unbreakable. To truly understand the nature of this innate human power, we need only to observe a child learning to walk. Let us call it the parable of the walker. Imagine a living room. A small child, perhaps 1 year old, is holding on to a coffee table. Inside their mind, a powerful desire has been born. They want to get from the table to the loving open arms of their parent across the room. That is the vision. That is the desire. So they make a decision. They let go of the safety of the table. They take one wobbly, courageous step, and then inevitably they fall. Now, what happens in this moment is a masterclass in the philosophy of achievement. First, what does the child do? Do they lie on the floor and, after a moment of analysis, conclude that the laws of physics are against them and that walking is clearly not a viable mode of transportation? Do they look up and blame the floor for being too hard, or the parent for being too far away? No, they may cry for a moment from the shock, but then something remarkable happens. They crawl back to the table, pull themselves up, and with a look of pure, unadulterated determination, they try again, and they fall again, and they try again. Now, consider the role of the parent. This is the crucial part of the lesson. When the child falls for the 10th time, does the parent rush over and say, "That's it, you've had enough. You've tried 10 times, that's more than fair. Maybe you're just not meant to be a walker. Let's try crawling for another year or two"? Of course not. That would be absurd. Why? Because the parent's belief in the child's eventual success is absolute. It is not a question of if the child will walk, but only a question of when. The parent's role is not to set a limit on the number of attempts. Their role is to cheer the effort, to celebrate the attempt, to comfort the fall, and to maintain an unwavering faith in the inevitable outcome. You must become your own wise and loving parent in the pursuit of your own dreams. You must have that same unshakable belief in your own eventual success. You must learn to celebrate your own courageous attempts, even when they end in failure. You must learn to comfort yourself when you fall, and then, most importantly, you must have the resolve to pull yourself back up and try again, and again, and again. How many times should you try to build your dream? How many times should you attempt to create the life you desire? How long is long enough? The answer is simple: as long as it takes. That is the anthem of resolve. As long as it takes. The drifter, the person who fails, always operates on a timeline. He says, "I'll try this new business for 6 months, and if it's not profitable, I'll quit." He gives up when the work gets harder than his commitment. The architect, the person who succeeds, says, "I will do this until it is done." The time frame is irrelevant. The difficulty is irrelevant. The opinions of others are irrelevant. The only thing that is relevant is the promise he has made to himself. So, how do you forge this unbreakable foundation in your own life? Resolve is a muscle, and like any muscle, it is built through progressive resistance. You do not start by trying to lift 1,000 pounds. You start with small, daily promises that you refuse to break. You build resolve by making a promise to yourself that you will wake up just 15 minutes earlier tomorrow morning and then doing it. You build resolve by promising yourself you will read 10 pages of a good book every day and then doing it. You build resolve by promising yourself you will make that one difficult phone call you have been avoiding and then doing it. Each time you keep a small promise to yourself, you cast a vote for the new version of you. You deposit another piece of evidence into the bank account of your self-trust. Each act of discipline, no matter how small, strengthens the muscle of your resolve. You prove to yourself through action that your word has power. And as this muscle grows, you begin to focus not on the distant finish line, but on the process. The resolved mind is not overwhelmed by the enormity of the goal. It is focused with a quiet and relentless intensity on the single step it must take today. It is focused on winning the day. If you can win the day, every day, the weeks, the months, and the years will inevitably take care of themselves. So we see now how these great forces work in harmony. Disgust is the spark. It is the explosive force that breaks you free from the prison of your past. Decision is the rudder. It is the clear, intelligent force that sets your course. Desire is the wind. It is the passionate, pulling force that fills your sails and makes the journey exciting. And resolve is the deep, heavy keel of the ship itself. It is the unbreakable foundation. It is the force that keeps you stable in the inevitable storms. It is the force that keeps you moving steadily forward, even on the days when there is no wind. With these four great forces aligned within you, with the push of disgust, the direction of decision, the pull of desire, and the unbreakable foundation of resolve, you are no longer a piece of driftwood tossed about by the currents of life. You are a magnificent and powerful ship under the command of a sovereign captain. You are now a loaded cannon aimed at a new destiny. But even a loaded cannon is useless until one final act takes place. You must light the fuse. And that brings us to the bridge between this profound inner world we have built and the outer world of results. It is time to discuss the final, simple, and most crucial step of all. It is time to talk about action. We have journeyed to the very bedrock of the human spirit. We have assembled the four great emotional forces that create radical and lasting change. We began with the fiery spark of disgust, the power that severs our ties to a past we will no longer tolerate. We then found the cool clarity of decision, the power that sets our new course and points us toward a new destiny. We fanned the flames with the magnetic power of desire, the force that pulls us forward with passion and vision. And we have just laid the unbreakable foundation of resolve, the quiet, deep promise to ourselves that we will walk the path for as long as it takes. Look at what you have built within you: the push of disgust, the direction of decision, the pull of desire, and the unbreakable foundation of resolve. You are now a fully loaded cannon, aimed with precision at a new and magnificent future. You have done the profound and difficult internal work. But even a loaded cannon, aimed perfectly, is nothing more than a sculpture until one final, crucial act takes place. You must light the fuse. This brings us to the final step in our philosophy of change. It is the step that separates the dreamer from the doer. It is the step that transforms the invisible into the visible. We must now talk about the great bridge between your inner world and the outer world. We must now talk about action. Action is the bridge. Your dreams, your goals, your resolutions, your brilliant ideas, they all live on one side of a great canyon. This is the continent of your inner world. On the other side of the canyon is the world of results, of reality, of the life you wish to live. Action, and only action, is the bridge that can span that chasm. We live in an age that is often confused about this. We are told that if we just think positively, if we visualize enough, if we say our affirmations with enough feeling, that our dreams will magically manifest. But let me be clear, I believe in the power of positive thinking. I believe in the power of a clear vision. But an affirmation without action is a delusion. It is a form of sophisticated self-deception. It is the act of drawing a detailed blueprint for a magnificent mansion and then expecting the mansion to appear without ever picking up a hammer. The universe does not reward your intentions. The world does not reward your good ideas. The marketplace does not reward your affirmations. The world rewards those who do. It rewards applied philosophy. It rewards embodied intention. Action is the currency of reality. And action serves another, more subtle purpose. Action is not just the end result of clarity. It is often the source of clarity. The drifter believes he must figure everything out first, and then he will act. He is waiting for the perfect plan, the guaranteed outcome. And so, he waits forever. The architect understands a deeper truth. You act your way into clarity. You do not think your way into action. Imagine a sculptor standing before a great, unformed block of marble. Does he have a perfect pixel for pixel image of the final statue in his mind before he strikes the first blow? No. He has an idea, a feeling, a direction. But the statue is revealed not in his contemplation, but in the very act of chipping away the stone. He makes a cut, he steps back, he learns from the new shape that is revealed, and then he makes the next cut. The form emerges from the process of action. Your life is that block of marble. You cannot stand back and think your way to a masterpiece. You must have the courage to pick up the hammer and chisel of action and begin to chip away at the things that do not belong. Your perfect life will be revealed to you in the doing of the work. So, the internal work is complete. You are ready. But how do you guide this new powerful impulse to act? How do you ensure your actions are wise, consistent, and aimed in the right direction? To guide you across this great bridge, I want to leave you with a compass. It is a set of 4 simple but profoundly powerful questions. These are the questions you must ask yourself in the moment of truth, the questions that will light the fuse. If you will take these 4 questions, write them down, and live with them, they will shift everything. The first question is, why try? This is the great question that confronts the voice of apathy and cynicism within all of us. The voice that whispers, what's the point? It's too hard. The odds are against you. It's safer not to even begin. Why should you try? Why should you get up an hour earlier? Why should you read the books, build the habits, and do the difficult work? And the simple, powerful answer is the one we have heard before. Why not? Let us go deeper into that. Why not see just how far you can go? Why not discover the full measure of your own potential? Why not find out what you are truly capable of creating, of building, of becoming? But there is a more urgent reason, and it is this: the time will pass anyway. The next 5 years of your life will pass, whether you try or not. You will arrive at that future destination 5 years older, without fail. The only question is, in what condition will you arrive? Will you arrive at your future with a collection of new skills, new achievements, and a life you are proud of? Or will you arrive with nothing but a collection of well-practiced excuses and the heavy, crushing weight of regret? Regret is the most toxic of all human emotions. The pain of discipline and effort is temporary. It is the burn in the muscle that leads to strength. But the pain of regret is a ghost that will haunt you for the rest of your days. It is the ghost of the person you could have become. You try, because the alternative, the life of quiet, agonizing regret, is simply unacceptable. The second question: why not you? This is the question that confronts the inner voice of inadequacy and unworthiness. The voice that looks at successful, happy, fulfilled people and says, that's fine for them, but I'm different. They started with more advantages. They are smarter, more talented, luckier. I ask you to challenge that voice. Why not you? Look at the stories of human history. Some people start with nothing and build empires. Some rise from the most difficult of circumstances to live the most beautiful of lives. Why not you? Do you believe they are a different species? Do you believe they were given some secret gift at birth that you were denied? The great truth is that they are ordinary people who at some point adopted an extraordinary philosophy. They made a decision. They harnessed their emotions. They resolved to try for as long as it takes. The drifter has a philosophy that says, first I must have the resources, then I will do the work, and then I will be the person I want to be. This is the formula for a lifetime of waiting. The architect understands the law of the universe. The formula is the other way around. First, you must be the person. You must adopt the philosophy, the discipline, the character of the person you wish to become. From that state of being, you will naturally do the work that that kind of person does. And from that work, you will, without fail, have the results that that kind of person has. So the question is not what they have that you don't. The question is, are you willing to become the person who earns the life you desire? The question is not can you, the question is will you? The third question, why not now? This is the direct assault on the paralysis of someday. It is the antidote to the poison of procrastination. The voice of the drifter is always whispering, wait, the time isn't right. Wait until you have more money, more time, more confidence. Wait for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment is a myth. It does not exist. There will always be a reason to wait. The conditions will never be 100% perfect. Now, with all of its glorious imperfections, with all of its challenges and its limitations, is the only time you will ever have. The past is a memory. The future is a fantasy. Your point of power is always and only now. Waiting is a habit. And if you practice it, you become very good at it. But so is action. You must understand the physics of momentum. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. That is the state of the drifter. But an object in motion tends to stay in motion. That is the state of the architect. The hardest part of any journey is overcoming the initial inertia. The smallest action, reading one page of the book, making one phone call, writing the first sentence of the business plan, that one small, real act is infinitely more powerful than the grandest of intentions. Action creates momentum. And momentum is the magic force that makes the second step easier than the first, and the third easier than the second. Do not wait for a great tidal wave of motivation. Start by creating a single, small ripple of action right now. And the fourth and final question, why not ask for help? This is the question that confronts the voice of arrogance and ego. The voice that tells us, I have to do this all by myself to prove my worth. This is a foolish and destructive philosophy. There is no prize for struggling alone. True strength is not the absence of need. It is the wisdom to recognize a need and the humility to seek a solution. The arrogant fool tries to reinvent the wheel and struggles in isolation. The wise leader builds a team, finds a mentor, and learns from the mistakes of others. There are two kinds of help you must be willing to ask for. First, ask for guidance. Find the people who have already built the bridge you are trying to cross, and humbly ask them for the blueprint. This can save you years of painful and costly trial and error. Second, ask for support. Lean on your friends, your family, your community. Be willing to be vulnerable and to admit when the journey is tough. Strength is not pretending you don't have burdens. It is allowing others to help you carry them. So there it is. Your compass. When you feel the pull of apathy, ask why try. When you feel the sting of inadequacy, ask why not me. When you feel the seduction of procrastination, ask why not now. And when you feel the weight of the journey alone, ask why not ask for help. The inner world is now aligned. You have the emotional fuel. You have the compass of these 4 questions to guide you. You are standing on the edge of the canyon, and the bridge of action is before you. And here is the final secret. That bridge is not built first and then crossed. The bridge is built by the very act of walking. You lay the stones of the path one step at a time as you move forward with courage into what was once the unknown. You have the fuel. You have the compass. All that is left is for you to take the first step. And in doing so, you will be like the great gardener who takes the raw materials of life and through a partnership of belief and labor begins to build something beautiful. And that brings us to our final thought. We have come to the end of our journey together tonight. We have traveled through the intricate and often challenging landscape of the human heart and mind. We began with the recognition of a day of awakening, a moment when an internal revolution is declared. We discovered that this revolution is not powered by logic, but by the raw, magnificent force of the engine of change, emotion. We learned how to strike the first match with the power of righteous disgust, using it to sever our ties to a past we will no longer tolerate. From that clean break, we stood at the crossroads and learned the art of a true decision, the power that gives our new life a clear and focused direction. We then fanned the flames with the magnetic pull of desire, cultivating a vision for the future so compelling that it incinerates all excuses. We laid the unbreakable foundation of resolve, the quiet, deep promise to ourselves that we will walk the path for as long as it takes. And finally, we took all of that profound internal work and built the bridge to reality with action, guided by the 4 great questions that serve as our lifelong compass. Why try? Why not you? Why not now? And why not ask for help? We have assembled all the pieces. We have constructed a complete philosophy for radical and lasting change. And now, as we conclude, I want to leave you with one final, simple, and timeless story. A story that contains, within its elegant frame, everything we have discussed tonight. It is the story of the gardener in the garden. There was a man who was given a piece of land. It was not a remarkable piece of land. It was rocky, it was stubborn, it was overgrown with thorns and weeds. To the casual observer, it was a place of neglect, a testament to difficulty. But this man was different. He was a man with a vision. He saw not what was, but what could be. And so he began the long and arduous work. For years he labored. He cleared the rocks, one by one, his hands bleeding from the effort. He pulled the thorny weeds. Day after day, under the hot sun, he tilled the stubborn soil, turning it over and over, infusing it with life. He planted tiny, hopeful seeds. He watered them, he protected them, and he waited with the patient faith of a true creator. And over the course of time, a miracle occurred. The rocky, barren piece of land was transformed. It became a magnificent garden, a symphony of color, a place of profound beauty, peace, and abundance. It was bursting with vibrant flowers and laden with delicious fruit. One day, a visitor was walking by and stopped, awestruck by the sight. He found the gardener resting in the shade of a great tree. The visitor said, with reverence in his voice, "My, what a blessing. God has surely given you a beautiful and magnificent garden." The gardener, a man of deep humility and honest wisdom, smiled and wiped the sweat from his brow. He looked out over his creation and replied, "Yes, he has. I am profoundly grateful. But you should have seen it when God had it all to himself." Let us, for the remainder of our time together, unpack the profound and life-altering wisdom contained in that simple story. For this parable is the final key. It is the grand synthesis of our entire philosophy. First, the rocky, barren piece of land. What is that? That is your life as it was given to you. That is your life perhaps as it is right now. The rocks are your excuses. The stories you have told yourself for years about why you cannot change. They are heavy, they are deeply embedded, and they seem like a permanent part of the landscape. The weeds are your bad habits, your negative thought patterns, your limiting beliefs. They grow effortlessly. And if left untended, they will choke the life out of any potential that lies dormant in the soil. The gardener's first act was to look upon this difficult land and have a moment of righteous disgust. He did not blame the land. He did not curse the rocks. He simply said, the state of this garden is unacceptable. It is beneath its potential, and I am the one responsible for changing it. That was his turning point. His decision was the moment he first picked up a shovel and broke the hard ground. He didn't have a perfect plan for the entire garden, but he chose a place to begin. He made a start. That first act of labor was his declaration that a new future for this land was no longer just a wish. It was a project in motion. His desire was the vivid, beautiful picture he held in his mind's eye. While his hands were bleeding from pulling thorns, his mind was walking through fragrant rose bushes. While his back ached from clearing rocks, his spirit was resting in the shade of a great tree that did not yet exist. This vision, this compelling desire for what could be, was the fuel that sustained him through the hardship of what was. And his resolve was the quiet rhythm of his daily labor. It was the promise he made to the garden each morning when he rose before the sun. It was the discipline to keep showing up, to keep pulling weeds, to keep watering day after day, week after week, season after season, even when the results were not yet visible. It was the philosophy of as long as it takes. This brings us to the great and beautiful truth at the heart of the story, the divine partnership. Life is a partnership between human effort and a power that is greater than us. Call it God, call it nature, call it the universe, call it potential. The name is not important. The principle is everything. This partnership is represented by the raw materials the gardener was given. He was given the soil. The soil represents your circumstances. Some are born into fertile soil with more advantages and opportunities. Some are born into rocky, difficult soil. The drifter spends his life complaining about the quality of his soil. The architect, the gardener, accepts the soil he has been given and immediately begins the work of improving it, of enriching it, of making it better than he found it. Your circumstances are your starting point, not your final destination. He was given the seeds. The seeds represent your potential, your unique talents, your ideas, your dreams, your capacity for courage, for discipline, for love. Every human being is born with a pocketful of these miraculous seeds. But a seed left in a drawer, safe and protected, is just a dead thing. It is a tragedy of unrealized potential. Its power is only unlocked when you have the courage to take it out and plant it in the soil of the real world, to risk it in the service of your vision. And he was given the sunshine and the rain. This is the miracle of the seasons of life, the things that are outside of our control. The universe provides the seasons. It provides the spring of opportunity, the summer of growth, the autumn of harvest, and the winter of rest. You cannot control the weather. You cannot make the sun shine or the rain fall. The foolish gardener complains about the weather. The wise gardener learns to work in partnership with the seasons. He learns to plant in the spring, to protect in the summer, to reap in the fall, and to plant in the winter. The soil, the seeds, the sunshine, and the rain, this is the divine gift. This is what the garden looked like when God had it all to himself. It was a field of pure, raw, and unrealized potential. But potential, left on its own, remains just that. The miracle of the garden was not just in the gift. It was in the partnership. It was in the work of the gardener. And what is that work? It is your human responsibility. It is the work of clearing. It is the difficult initial labor of removing the rocks of your old excuses and pulling the stubborn weeds of your bad habits. It is the work of planting. It is the courageous act of taking the seed of your potential and putting it into the soil of the real world where it can be tested and where it can grow. It is the work of cultivating. It is the daily, consistent, and often unglamorous discipline of watering your goals with new knowledge, of protecting your mind from the pests of negativity and doubt. And it is the work of faith. The gardener plants a seed and trusts that the unseen forces of life will do their part. He cannot see the roots spreading underground, but he acts as if they are. That is the faith that your consistent daily efforts, governed by a sound philosophy, will, by law, eventually produce a result. And so we arrive at our final conclusion. You have been given a garden. Your life, right now, in this very moment, with all of its challenges and all of its opportunities, is your piece of land. And you are its gardener. You can choose to let it lie fallow, to let it be overgrown with the weeds of neglect and the rocks of your excuses. You can choose to complain about the quality of your soil or the fairness of the weather. That is the path of the drifter. Or you can choose to become the gardener. You can choose to partner with the magnificent potential that lies dormant within you. You can choose to do the hard, noble, and deeply fulfilling work of creating something beautiful. I ask you to look at the garden of your life, and I ask you to answer for yourself the 4 great questions. Why try to cultivate this garden? Because the time will pass anyway, and the alternative is a field of weeds and a lifetime of regret. Why not you? Other gardeners with rockier soil and harsher weather have created masterpieces. Why not you? Why not now? The season for planting is always and only now. Tomorrow is a promise that may never come. And why not ask for help? Why not learn from the master gardeners who have come before you? The divine partnership is waiting. The soil has been given. The seeds are in your hand. The sun is in the sky. Your turn. Maybe, just maybe, today is the day you finally pick up the shovel. Today is the day you begin. Thank you for sharing this time with me tonight as we've explored the anatomy of a life-changing day. Remember, the garden of your life is waiting for its gardener. You have the seeds, you have the soil, and now you have the philosophy. You do not have to walk this path of transformation alone. If this message has planted a seed of possibility in you, please share it with one person who you feel needs to hear it. And to continue cultivating your own garden with us, to receive more wisdom for a life of design and purpose, I invite you one last time to subscribe to the channel and join this community of builders. Maybe, just maybe, today is the day you begin.